Welcome to another episode of the Kontakt Script Programmer. Today we're going to look at 3.6 and maybe even 3.7 because they are pretty similar, but we are going to build a few of these as well. I'm going to be using a MIDI keyboard today. You don't have to. We can always use the on-screen keyboard that I usually use. Just letting you know if you wanted to. It might be a little bit easier for you to use if you're not familiar with the on-screen keyboard, or if you don't have one, or if you're programming in something like Pro Tools or I think everything else pretty much has an on-screen keyboard, but we can make it work regardless. So the string variable, a string in computing terms is for all intents and purposes letters. So whereas we've been dealing with real arrays or real numbers being numbers with decimal points, and real variables, arrays being groups of settings or settings within a particular bounds, and variables. Today we're going to talk about string variables. We do use string variables quite a bit. Obviously for graphics, to write anything out, we're going to use letters, not necessarily numbers, or images. We could use images, which we might go into a little bit later. The big thing that you do need to remember when you're declaring string variables is they can't be done in the same line of code like we do with integers. So we do need to do them kind of like these real numbers, where we declare them once and then we initialize them with a value on another line. So we can make them persistent with make persistent, which we've gone into in earlier videos. I think it was about 2.4, 2.5, something like that. So this patch is pretty basic, but already you can see how some of this stuff will start to work together. So we've got initialization. We declare a text string variable. Okay. Then whenever we type @text, it's going to replace the @text with the string that we've input. So we've got last received note number played or released. And then after that, we're going to add in the note that we're playing. So you could see how this would be useful for maybe chord recognition software, or just something that had to do a specific thing, or had to call a specific chord scale, or something like that when you pushed a particular note. Maybe it would even tell you when you pushed this particular note what articulation you're using or something like that. So on note, so whenever we push down a note, we send a message that is @text, which is this @text call here, the last received note number played or released, and then we add in the event note. So the note that we're playing currently, or the note that sent this message, will be pinged by that. So it'll say last received note number played or released, and then it'll be a number from 0 to 127, depending on what note on the keyboard you play. Just for reference, 60 is middle C. Okay, so from there, on release, whenever we release a note, it's also going to give us last received note number played or released. So we are going to double up in here. It's just to show you how the string variables work. So we will jump together and put this in. Let's also look up this UI text edit really quickly. There are not too many, so it's going to be in 410, so we'll have a bit of a play there. But basically what we're doing here is creating a text edit field, where we can change the text. I don't think there's anything else we need to worry too much about there. It is a pretty new function. No, so that's all we've got. Okay. From there, we also have make persistent, and they're letting us know that we should look up string arrays, which we did a little bit earlier, which we will do in the very next one, which you can kind of imagine how that's going to work. We're going to be able to put text into an array and then call that specific array or that element of that array to replace that text. So a really useful function, very similar ways to how video games usually work in terms of calling stats or character names, is pulling them from part of an array. So start thinking about how we could use this to display text without having to type the text every single time. Have set bits of text that we can just inject directly into our code. So let's go ahead and build this short patch just so you see what it's doing, and then we'll move on to 3.7. They kind of go together pretty nicely. So in logic, we're going to start with the on-initialization phase, as we always do. We're going to declare @text, and then on a separate line, we need to declare the text setting. Last received, I can't see my note number played or released. And then we're just going to give a space so that it formats correctly, and on, because that's all we need to do here. Okay, on note. So whenever we hold down a note or whenever we push down a note, we're going to send a message which just says @text, which is immediately going to sub in all that. Okay, and then we need to grab the event note. Okay, all that's in brackets and on, and then we have on release, and we're going to grab the message again @text. Event note and on. Let's take a look at this. So if I'm going to use my on-screen keyboard, any number I push here, we can already see last received note number played or released 50. So if I go up an octave and hit my middle C, as I said before, last received note number played or released 60. If I go and bash my MIDI keyboard, you can see my MIDI keyboard jumping around, and we've got a wild number of different settings. Okay, the lowest possible setting is your 0, which is this bottom C here. Okay, so a pretty handy patch today to use to be able to read string arrays. When we get into more advanced programming, when we talk about macros and starting to run through loops to iterate over concepts to recreate patches, we're going to start using this stuff quite a bit. So I know that the third chapter in this with different types of variables might be a little bit hard to understand the application for them, but we are going to keep building these as we go. Well, I think I will break this up into another patch or another video just so that you can really smash through these and relate to them if you really need to. For now, that's the variable, pretty easy to use. Maybe try and use it in a patch, and we will come back with string array next time. See ya.